Have you ever gone to bed exhausted, not from what you did today, but from what you carried inside all day? You lie in the dark, the room finally quiet, yet your mind keeps replaying moments you tried to ignore. A sentence someone said, a look that felt dismissive, an old memory that surfaced for no clear reason. Your body rests, but something deeper in you does not. Maybe you are a good person. You try to be kind. You listen. You forgive more than you should. You give your best, even when no one sees it. And yet, you suffer. Not loudly, not in ways others easily notice. You suffer quietly, with a tight chest at night, with shallow breaths before sleep, with a sadness that has no obvious story attached to it. Many people ask in silence why this happens. Why does life feel heavy, even when you have done nothing wrong? Why does pain visit those who mean well? Why do wounds exist even when there was no clear injury? The Buddha taught that suffering does not always come from cruelty or failure. Often, it comes from misunderstanding, from carrying what was never meant to be carried, from clinging to stories about ourselves, about others, about how life should be. Invisible wounds are born not in the body, but in the mind and heart that have learned to endure too much without rest. Tonight, you are not here to fix yourself. You are not broken. You are here to understand, to gently see what has been shaping your pain beneath the surface of your days. The Buddha taught that deep healing does not always require effort. Sometimes it begins with seeing clearly, then allowing the mind to soften. As you listen, as you read, let your body rest. Let your breath slow. These teachings are meant to meet you where you are, especially in the quiet hours. Healing can begin even while you sleep, when the heart finally feels safe enough to loosen its grip. The first teaching: why good people carry pain that is not theirs. Have you ever noticed how the day finally ends, yet your body still feels tense? You lie in bed, the lights off, the world quiet, but your jaw is tight, your chest heavy, your breath shallow. Nothing terrible happened today. No crisis, no obvious trauma, and yet, something inside you feels bruised. This is how invisible suffering often lives, not as a single dramatic event, but as an accumulation of moments. A responsibility you accepted without wanting to, an apology you offered even though you were the one hurt, a feeling you swallowed to keep the peace. Over time, these moments settle into the body like fine dust, unseen but heavy. The Buddha taught that much of human suffering comes not from pain itself, but from misidentification. He called this misunderstanding attavada, the belief in a solid self that must carry, fix, and endure everything. When you believe you are responsible for keeping others comfortable, when you believe their emotions reflect your worth, when you believe being good means never disappointing anyone, suffering quietly takes root. Good people often suffer because they are attentive. They notice tension. They sense shifts in mood. They feel responsible for harmony. This sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a strength. But without wisdom, it becomes a burden. The Buddha taught anatta, non-self, not as a philosophy to memorize, but as a relief to be felt. Anatta means there is no fixed you that must absorb everything. There is no solid core that has to be perfect, agreeable, endlessly giving. There is experience arising and passing, shaped by causes and conditions. When suffering appears, it does not mean you have failed. It means conditions have formed. Consider a woman named Lena. She was known as the reliable one. At work, she stayed late. In her family, she mediated conflicts. With friends, she listened for hours. People praised her kindness, her patience, her strength. But at night, Lena could not sleep. Her chest felt tight, her thoughts restless. She often woke before dawn with a sense of dread she could not explain. Lena believed her suffering meant she was ungrateful or weak. She had a good life. Nothing was wrong. So why did she feel this way? She tried to fix herself. Yoga, journaling, positive thinking. But the heaviness remained. One evening, during a retreat, a teacher asked a simple question. What are you carrying that does not belong to you? The question stayed with her. Over the following days, Lena began to notice how often she took responsibility for other people's emotions. If someone was upset, she assumed she had caused it. If someone was disappointed, she felt she had failed. Her kindness had quietly turned into self-erasure. The Buddha taught that suffering increases when we confuse compassion with self-abandonment. True compassion includes wisdom. It knows what is yours to hold and what is not. Anatta does not mean you do not care. It means you do not cling. You can offer kindness without absorbing blame. You can listen without losing yourself. You can help without believing you are the cause of someone else's peace or pain. Invisible wounds often form when good people ignore their own limits, not because they want to suffer, but because they learned early that love meant availability, that safety meant pleasing, that belonging required sacrifice. The Buddha taught dependent origination. Everything arises due to conditions. Your exhaustion did not appear because you are broken. It appeared because conditions repeated themselves without interruption. Overgiving, over-explaining, over-functioning. Each time the body said stop, the mind said endure. To begin healing, you must see clearly. This is not about changing behavior yet. It is about recognition. Tonight, place one hand on your chest. Feel the warmth beneath your palm. Take a slow breath in through the nose, gentle and unforced. Then exhale longer than you inhale. Let the shoulders soften. Now silently observe. Ask yourself without judgment, what am I carrying that is not mine? Do not search for an answer. Let it arise. It may come as an image, a memory, a familiar name, or simply a sensation of weight. This practice is not about blame. It is about truth. The Buddha taught that seeing clearly is already a form of liberation. Lena began this practice each night, not to fix herself, but to listen. She noticed the tightness in her chest appeared after certain conversations. She noticed her breath became shallow when she thought about disappointing others. Slowly, she stopped arguing with her body. She stopped telling herself she should feel fine. Instead, she whispered something new. This feeling is allowed. This pain is understandable. Something shifted, not dramatically, quietly. The body felt less like an enemy and more like a messenger. The Buddha taught that when we stop resisting suffering, it begins to loosen, not all at once, but enough to breathe. Before sleep, try this. Lie on your back. Let your arms rest comfortably. Bring attention to the breath without controlling it. With each exhale, silently say, not mine, not as rejection, but as release. Not mine to fix, not mine to carry, not mine to become. You may feel emotion rise, sadness, relief, fatigue. Let it come. This is the nervous system learning safety. Good people do not suffer because they are weak. They suffer because they have not been taught how to rest inside themselves. The Buddha offered this teaching not to remove your kindness, but to protect it. When you understand non-self, you stop making your goodness a burden. You stop confusing love with depletion. You allow the heart to be open without being unguarded. Tonight, you do not need to solve your life. You only need to recognize that your pain has a cause, and that cause is not who you are. As the body rests, as the mind softens, this understanding can sink deeper than thought. Healing does not always begin with effort. Sometimes it begins with permission. Permission to stop carrying what was never yours. Permission to be human. Permission to rest. The second teaching: how suppressed emotions become nighttime suffering. Have you ever noticed how emotions you ignore during the day return at night? You manage well while the sun is up. You smile, you function, you do what is needed. But when the lights go out and the body finally slows, something stirs inside you. A heaviness in the chest, a quiet ache behind the eyes, a sadness without a clear name. This is not weakness. This is the nervous system finally feeling safe enough to speak. The Buddha taught that suffering grows when feelings are resisted. He called this dukkha, not just pain, but the strain created by pushing against what is already present. Many good people learn early that certain emotions are unacceptable. Anger feels dangerous. Sadness feels inconvenient. Fear feels shameful. So they learn to suppress, to smile through discomfort, to be strong instead of honest. But emotions do not disappear when ignored. They wait. The Buddha taught Vedana, feeling tone. Every experience carries a sensation that is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When an unpleasant feeling arises and the mind says this should not be here, tension is created. The body holds the emotion even when the mind turns away. Over time, these unprocessed feelings settle into the body and emerge as nighttime suffering. Consider a man named Daniel. He was calm, dependable, and admired for his composure. When conflict arose, he stayed reasonable. When life disappointed him, he said it was fine. He believed strength meant emotional control. At night, Daniel slept poorly. He woke with his heart racing. His jaw was clenched. His dreams were restless. Doctors found nothing wrong. He was healthy, productive, successful, and deeply tired. During a meditation retreat, Daniel was instructed to sit quietly and observe sensations in the body. Within minutes, a tightness rose in his throat, then heat in his chest. Without warning, tears came. He felt embarrassed, confused, almost angry at himself. The teacher gently said, "Do not analyze, just feel." In that moment, Daniel realized how long he had avoided feeling disappointment, grief, and anger. Each time he said it does not matter, the body remembered. Each time he swallowed words, the chest tightened a little more. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is not control. It is allowing. Healing does not come from pushing emotions away, but from letting them move through awareness without resistance. Good people often suffer because they believe their emotions will harm others. They fear that anger will make them cruel, that sadness will burden those they love, that fear will make them weak. So they become emotionally invisible, even to themselves. The Buddha taught metta, loving kindness, not as politeness, but as friendliness toward experience. Metta begins with allowing yourself to feel without judgment. Invisible wounds soften when they are met with kindness instead of correction. To practice this teaching, begin by creating a safe inner space. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, sit or lie comfortably. Place one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Feel the rise and fall of the breath. Silently say, "It is allowed." Whatever arises is allowed. If sadness appears, let it be there. If anger surfaces, notice its heat without acting on it. If fear trembles, feel its vibration in the body. You are not indulging emotion, you are acknowledging it. The Buddha taught that when feeling is fully known, it completes itself. Emotions are movements of energy. When they are blocked, they become tension. When they are allowed, they pass. Daniel practiced this each night. At first, it was uncomfortable. He felt emotions he had not touched in years. Grief for lost relationships. Anger, at times he felt powerless. Fear he never admitted. But something changed. His sleep deepened. His dreams softened. The body no longer needed to shout at night because it was being heard during the day. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is like opening a window in a room filled with stale air. You do not force the air out. You simply allow space, and the air moves on its own. If an emotion feels overwhelming, return to the breath. Slow and steady. Longer exhales signal safety to the nervous system. You are not alone with this feeling. Awareness is holding it. Say silently, "May I be gentle with what I feel." This is metta in action. Good people do not suffer because they feel too much. They suffer because they feel alone with their feelings. Loving kindness brings companionship to the inner world. Another common source of nighttime suffering is unexpressed truth. Words you never said, boundaries you never named, needs you minimized. The Buddha taught right speech, not just as moral behavior, but as inner honesty. When truth is consistently suppressed, the body holds the cost. You may notice that certain thoughts repeat at night. Conversations replay. Alternative responses form. This is the mind trying to complete unfinished emotional cycles. Instead of replaying the story, feel the emotion beneath it. Is it anger, grief, longing, disappointment? Name it softly in the mind without judgment. This is sadness. This is anger. This is fear. Naming creates space. Space allows release. Before sleep, try this practice. Bring to mind one moment from the day that still lingers. Do not analyze it. Feel where it lives in the body. Breathe into that area. On the exhale, imagine softening around the sensation rather than pushing it away. Whisper inwardly, "I see you." This simple recognition can prevent emotions from storing themselves in the nervous system overnight. The Buddha taught that suffering ends not when life becomes perfect, but when resistance ends. Allowing does not mean acting out every feeling. It means not abandoning yourself when feelings arise. Daniel learned that true strength was not suppression, but presence. He remained kind, calm, and responsible, but he no longer erased himself to maintain peace. Good people heal when they learn that their emotions are not threats. They are signals, messengers, movements of life asking to be witnessed. As you rest tonight, remember this: your body speaks in sensations. Your emotions speak in feelings. Listening is an act of compassion. You do not need to relive every wound. You only need to stop turning away. Healing often happens quietly, when the mind loosens its grip and the heart is allowed to feel without fear. Even while you sleep, this gentle permission can continue its work. Let the body rest. Let the breath slow. Let feelings come and go like waves. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be forced. This is the second teaching. Suffering softens when emotions are met with kindness instead of resistance. The third teaching. How attachment creates silent suffering and how to let go gently. Have you ever noticed how certain thoughts refuse to let you rest at night? A future you are worried about, a relationship you are trying to hold together, an outcome you keep replaying in your mind, hoping it will turn out differently. Your body lies still, but your mind grips tightly, as if staying alert could prevent loss. This is a common and tender form of suffering. It does not come from cruelty or failure. It comes from attachment. The Buddha taught tanha, craving, not only craving for pleasure or success, but craving for certainty, control, and emotional security. Tanha is the mind reaching forward or backward, trying to hold what cannot be held. When craving is present, rest becomes difficult. The nervous system stays vigilant, sleep becomes shallow, dreams become restless. Good people often suffer deeply here because they care, they love, they invest their hearts fully, and without guidance, love quietly turns into clinging. Attachment does not mean love is wrong. It means love has become tied to fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of being alone. When love is mixed with fear, the body never fully relaxes. Consider a woman named Mira. She loved deeply and loyally. When she committed with her whole being. She anticipated others' needs. She adjusted herself to keep harmony. She believed that holding tightly was how love survived. At night, Mira struggled to sleep. Her thoughts circled around people she loved. Did I say the wrong thing? Are they upset? What if I lose them? Her chest felt tight. Her breath stayed high and shallow. She told herself this was love, but her body told another story. During a quiet teaching, she heard something that unsettled her. The Buddha taught that attachment is suffering not because we love, but because we demand permanence from what is impermanent. Everything changes. Moods, relationships, bodies, roles. This is not a failure of life, it is the nature of life. Mira began to see that much of her nighttime anxiety came from trying to secure what could never be fully secured. She wanted reassurance that nothing would change. Her body stayed tense because it was always preparing for loss. The Buddha taught anatta, impermanence, not as a cold truth, but as a gentle release. When you stop demanding permanence, the heart softens. When you stop gripping, the body rests. Attachment tightens the muscles. Letting go loosens them. This teaching is especially important before sleep. Nighttime is when control dissolves. The mind cannot manage. The body cannot perform. When attachment is strong, sleep feels unsafe because awareness fades. To the nervous system, letting go feels like danger unless trust is cultivated. The Buddha taught that peace comes not from holding life tightly, but from learning how to stay open while things move. Mira began a new practice before bed. She placed a hand on her chest and whispered inwardly, "Nothing needs to be held right now." At first, fear rose. What if I stop caring? What if I lose them? What if everything falls apart? She stayed with the breath, slow, steady, longer exhales. She noticed that care did not disappear, only tension softened. This is the difference between love and attachment. Love allows movement, attachment resists it. The Buddha taught that clinging is like gripping a rope that is on fire. The The tighter you hold, the more it burns. Letting go feels frightening at first, but it is the release that heals. Good people often confuse letting go with abandonment. But letting go does not mean withdrawing love. It means releasing the belief that your safety depends on controlling outcomes. Another place attachment hides is in identity. Who you think you must be. The role you feel responsible to maintain. The image you protect. At night, when the body is tired, these identities become heavy. The mind replays interactions, checking if the role was performed well enough. The Buddha taught that the self is not a fixed thing. It is a process. When you cling to who you think you should be, suffering follows. Mira realized she was attached to being the good one, the understanding one, the one who never caused disappointment. This attachment made rest impossible. She practiced letting go of roles before sleep. With each exhale, she silently released one label: partner, caregiver, achiever, strong one. Underneath, she found something softer, simply being. To practice this teaching tonight, lie comfortably and allow the body to be supported. Bring awareness to the breath. Notice where tension lives: jaw, shoulders, belly. With each exhale, imagine opening the hand of the mind. No gripping, no holding, no preparing. Silently say, "It is safe to let this moment pass." If fear arises, greet it gently. Fear often appears when attachment loosens. Stay with the breath. Fear softens when it is not fed by thought. You are not letting go of life. You are letting go of the struggle against life. The Buddha taught that suffering decreases as clinging decreases. This is not achieved through force, but through understanding. Mira noticed her sleep slowly change. Dreams became less frantic. Mornings felt lighter. She still loved deeply, but she no longer needed constant reassurance to feel safe. Her relationships improved because she was no longer gripping them. Presence replaced anxiety. Good people heal when they learn that care does not require tension. Love does not require fear. Commitment does not require self-abandonment. Impermanence is not something to overcome. It is something to rest within. As you prepare for sleep, offer yourself this reflection. Everything that needs to happen will happen without my gripping. Everything that needs to change will change without my permission. I can rest now. Let the body sink into the bed. Let the breath lengthen naturally. Let awareness soften. You do not need to guard the night. Life will continue to unfold even while you sleep. This is the third teaching. Suffering eases when attachment loosens and trust replaces control. The fourth teaching. How guilt and self-blame quietly steal your rest. Have you ever gone to bed thinking about what you should have done differently? A conversation where you replay your words. A decision that still feels unfinished. A moment where you believe you disappointed someone. The room is dark, the body tired, yet the mind keeps reviewing evidence against itself. This is guilt, not the kind that guides growth, but the kind that quietly erodes peace. Good people suffer deeply here. They hold themselves to invisible standards. They feel responsible not only for their actions, but for how others feel, react, and heal. When something goes wrong, they turn inward and ask, "What is wrong with me?" The Buddha taught that much suffering comes from ignorance, not from wrongdoing. Ignorance here does not mean lack of intelligence. It means not seeing clearly how causes and conditions work. He taught karma not as punishment, but as cause and effect. An action leads to a result based on many factors. Rarely is one person the sole cause of an outcome. When guilt arises, the mind simplifies reality and places the entire weight on the self. This creates silent suffering. Consider a man named Elias. He was thoughtful, conscientious, and deeply reflective. When relationships ended, he blamed himself completely. When someone was unhappy, he searched for his mistake. Even when events were out of his control, he carried a quiet sense of fault. At night, Elias struggled with sleep. His thoughts circled around regret. I should have known better. I should have tried harder. I should not have said that. His body stayed tense, as if punishment was expected. During a teaching, he heard something unexpected. The Buddha said, "You are not the sole author of your life. Everything arises from conditions beyond any single will." This was not an excuse. It was relief. Elias realized that guilt had become his way of trying to control the past. If he blamed himself enough, maybe he could prevent pain from happening again. But the body does not rest under constant self-surveillance. The Buddha taught that guilt becomes harmful when it loses wisdom, when reflection turns into rumination, when responsibility turns into self-attack. True responsibility leads to learning. Harmful guilt leads to paralysis. Good people often confuse the two. The Buddha taught compassion includes oneself. Without self-compassion, guilt becomes another form of violence turned inward. Invisible wounds deepen when the mind constantly returns to the past. Searching for errors, the nervous system stays activated. Sleep becomes shallow because vigilance never turns off. To begin healing, the Buddha offered wise reflection, not punishment. Reflection asks what can be learned. Guilt asks what must be paid. Elias began a simple practice before sleep. He reviewed the day gently, not to judge, but to observe. When guilt arose, he asked one question: did I act with the intention to cause harm? Often, the answer was no. Then he asked another question: did conditions beyond me play a role? Always, the answer was yes. This brought balance back to his mind. The Buddha taught that intention matters. Mistakes made without harmful intention require understanding, not punishment. Another source of guilt in good people is inherited guilt. Beliefs learned early: be good, do not upset others, do not take too much space, do not fail. These beliefs settle into the nervous system long before conscious choice. At night, when defenses drop, these voices grow louder. The Buddha taught that the mind is conditioned. Not every thought is truth. Some are echoes of the past. To practice this teaching, notice the voice of guilt when it appears. Do not argue with it. Do not obey it. Simply recognize it as a mental formation. Place a hand on the body and breathe. Longer exhales. Soft belly. Say silently, this is a conditioned thought, not a verdict. Let the body feel the safety of the present moment. Another hidden layer of guilt is survivor guilt. Feeling bad for resting, for being okay when others suffer, for having needs. Good people often feel they must earn rest. They struggle to sleep because relaxation feels undeserved. The Buddha taught that rest is not a reward. It is a requirement for clarity and compassion. Without rest, wisdom weakens. Elias noticed that when he allowed himself rest without justification, his mind softened. He did not become careless. He became clearer. Guilt lost its grip when it was no longer fed. Before sleep tonight, try this practice. Lie comfortably. Bring attention to the heart area. Breathe slowly. Bring to mind one thing you are holding against yourself. Not the worst, just one. Now say inwardly, I see this with kindness. Ask gently what can be learned here. If there is a lesson, acknowledge it. If there is no lesson, release the burden. Then say, I forgive myself for being human. Forgiveness here is not denial, it is acceptance of limitation. The Buddha taught that clinging to guilt is clinging to suffering. Letting go does not erase responsibility. It restores balance. Elias began sleeping more deeply as his mind stopped rehearsing punishment. His days became lighter. He was still accountable, but no longer cruel to himself. Good people heal when they stop confusing goodness with self-punishment, when they allow wisdom to replace blame. As you rest, remember this. You are part of a vast web of causes and conditions. You did not create everything alone. You do not need to carry everything alone. Let the past rest. Let the body rest. Tomorrow clarity will return. This is the fourth teaching. Suffering eases when guilt is met with understanding, and self-compassion replaces self-blame. The fifth teaching. How overthinking at night is the mind seeking safety. Have you ever laid in bed feeling completely exhausted yet unable to sleep because your mind will not stop talking? One thought leads to another. Memories mix with worries. Plans collide with regrets. You tell yourself to stop thinking, but the mind keeps going, as if staying awake is its job. This kind of suffering feels especially cruel. The body is ready to rest, but the mind refuses to let go. The Buddha taught that the mind does not overthink because it is broken. It overthinks because it is trying to protect you. Overthinking is the mind searching for safety through control. Good people suffer deeply here because they are conscientious. They want to anticipate problems. They want to avoid harm. They want to do things right. So the mind stays alert, scanning for mistakes, preparing for imagined futures, replaying the past to prevent it from repeating. The Buddha called this papanyaka, mental proliferation, thoughts multiplying thoughts, stories building on stories. The mind believes that more thinking will lead to more safety, but the body experiences this as tension. At night, when external distractions disappear, papanka becomes loud. The nervous system stays activated. Sleep feels unsafe because awareness loosens and control fades. Consider a woman named Noor. She was intelligent, reflective, and deeply responsible. During the day, she functioned well, but at night, her mind turned against her. She replayed conversations, anticipated future conflicts, questioned her decisions. Her body felt restless, her heart raced. Sleep came late and left early. Noor believed she needed to fix her thoughts. She tried forcing calm. She scolded herself for worrying. But the more she resisted, the louder the mind became. During a teaching, she learned something that changed everything. The Buddha taught that the mind cannot be silenced through force. It settles when it feels understood. Overthinking is fear wearing the mask of logic. When fear is ignored, thinking increases. When fear is met with presence, thinking slows. The Buddha taught sati, mindfulness, not as concentration, but as remembering to be here, to feel the body, to anchor awareness in something real. Noor began to notice that her overthinking always came with physical sensations, tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, tension in the jaw. Her thoughts were not floating freely. They were anchored in the body. This is important. You cannot calm the mind without calming the body. The Buddha taught that body and mind are not separate. When the body feels safe, the mind follows. Before sleep, Noor practiced something simple. Instead of arguing with her thoughts, she shifted attention to the body. She felt the weight of the blanket, the support of the bed, the rhythm of the breath. She silently told herself, "I am here now." At first, thoughts still appeared, but they lost urgency. They became quieter. The Buddha taught that attention starves mental proliferation, not by suppression, but by redirection. Another hidden layer of overthinking is unexpressed fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being enough. Good people often do not name fear. They intellectualize it. They turn it into planning, analyzing, preparing. But the body still carries the fear. The Buddha taught that fear dissolves when it is felt directly, without story. Tonight, when thoughts begin to race, try this practice. Do not follow the thoughts. Instead, ask, where is fear felt in the body? Place one hand there. Breathe slowly. Longer exhales. Soft belly. Say silently, "It is okay to rest now." This message must reach the nervous system, not just the intellect. Noor noticed something surprising. When she stopped demanding answers from her mind relaxed. It had been working overtime because it felt responsible for her safety. Another source of nighttime overthinking is unresolved meaning. Questions without answers. Why did this happen? What does this say about me? What will come next? The Buddha taught that not all questions need answers to dissolve. Some need presence. He taught equanimity, the ability to stay with uncertainty without collapsing. Good people often struggle with uncertainty because they care deeply about outcomes. But uncertainty is part of life. The body rests when the mind stops demanding certainty. Noor practiced saying, "I do not need to know tonight." This single sentence softened her mind more than any explanation ever had. Before sleep, create a ritual of safety. Dim the lights. Slow the body. Signal to the nervous system that vigilance can rest. Lie down and feel the contact points between your body and the bed. Let gravity do its work. You are being held. When thoughts arise, imagine placing them on a leaf floating down a stream. You do not push them away. You let them pass. If a thought feels urgent, return to the breath. Inhale gently. Exhale longer. The exhale tells the body it is safe. The Buddha taught that the present moment is always safe enough. Danger exists in imagination, not in direct experience. Noor began sleeping more deeply when she stopped trying to solve her life at night. She trusted that clarity would return with rest. Good people heal when they stop mistaking vigilance for care. Care can be gentle. Protection can include rest. Your mind is not your enemy. It has been trying to help in the only way it knows how. When you offer it reassurance, it learns a new way. As you rest tonight, remember this. You do not need to think your way to safety. You can feel your way there. Let the body rest. Let the breath slow. Let thoughts come and go without engagement. This is the fifth teaching. Overthinking softens when the body feels safe and the mind is allowed to rest from control. The sixth teaching. How unexpressed anger turns into silent exhaustion. Have you ever felt tired in a way that sleep does not fix? You rest, but you do not feel restored. Your body feels heavy. Your patience feels thin. Small things irritate you more than they should. Yet when you ask yourself if you are angry, the answer is no. You would never say that out loud. This is how anger hides in good people. The Buddha taught that anger is not always loud. It does not always appear as shouting or aggression. Often it disguises itself as fatigue, numbness, resentment. or quiet withdrawal. When anger is not allowed to move, it sinks into the body and becomes weight. Good people are often taught that anger is dangerous, that it makes them unkind, that it threatens connection, so they suppress it early. They tell themselves to be understanding, to be patient, to rise above. But the body does not forget what the mind refuses to feel. The Buddha taught dosa, aversion, one of the 3 roots of suffering. Dosa does not only mean hatred toward others, it also means pushing away experience, including your own truth. When anger is pushed away repeatedly, it does not disappear, it turns inward. Consider a woman named Hannah. She was gentle, thoughtful, and deeply considerate. People described her as calm. She rarely raised her voice. She avoided conflict whenever possible. She believed anger would damage relationships she worked hard to preserve. At night, Hannah felt drained. Her body ached. Her sleep was shallow. She woke feeling resentful without knowing why. During the day, she felt irritated by small requests. She told herself she was just tired. During a retreat, she was asked to sit with a simple question. What are you not allowing yourself to feel? At first, nothing came. Then heat in her chest, tightness in her throat. A memory surfaced of a time she had said yes when every part of her wanted to say no. Then another memory, and another. Tears came, followed by anger, not explosive, just honest. Hannah realized she had been living with unexpressed anger for years. Not anger meant to harm, but anger meant to protect her limits. Because she never listened to it, her body carried it instead. The Buddha taught that anger itself is not the enemy. Clinging to anger or suppressing it is what creates suffering. Anger is energy. It arises to signal violation, exhaustion, or unmet need. When it is acknowledged, it passes. When it is denied, it stagnates. Good people often fear that acknowledging anger will make them bad. But the Buddha taught that wisdom begins with truth, not with image. Anger does not make you unkind. Suppressing it often does. Another reason anger causes nighttime suffering is because anger is activating. It keeps the nervous system alert. When anger is unresolved, the body stays in a subtle state of readiness. Sleep feels unsafe because the body is still guarding something. Hannah learned to meet her anger differently, not by acting it out, but by listening to it. Before bed, she practiced a simple reflection. She asked herself, where did I feel tension today? Not what went wrong, not who was wrong, just where tension lived in the body. Often, it pointed to moments she had crossed her own limits. She placed a hand on her body and said silently, I hear you. This simple acknowledgement softened her system more than years of forcing calm. The Buddha taught right effort, not effort to suppress or indulge emotions, but effort to relate wisely. Right effort means allowing wholesome states to arise and unwholesome states to dissolve without force. When anger arises, right effort is neither repression nor explosion. It is awareness. Good people heal when they learn that anger can be felt without being acted on, that boundaries can be honored without harming others. That truth can exist alongside kindness. Another hidden layer of anger is resentment. Resentment is anger that has been postponed. It builds slowly when needs go unmet and words remain unspoken. Resentment often appears at night as irritability, restlessness, or bitterness toward imagined conversations. The Buddha taught that resentment burns the one who carries it first. Hannah noticed that her resentment faded when she began honoring small boundaries, saying no earlier, asking for rest, allowing herself to disappoint others instead of abandoning herself. Her anger softened because it was no longer ignored. To practice this teaching tonight, begin by allowing the possibility that anger may be present. You do not need to label yourself an angry person. You only need to notice sensation. Lie down and scan the body slowly. Jaw, shoulders, chest, belly, hips. Notice any tightness, heat, or pressure. Breathe into that area gently. On the exhale, imagine creating space around the sensation rather than forcing it away. Silently say it is safe to feel this. If thoughts arise about who caused the anger, gently return to sensation. This practice is not about blame. It is about release. You may feel emotion move, warmth, tears, sighs. These are signs of energy leaving the body. The Buddha taught that when anger is met with awareness, it loses its power to harm. Hannah found that as she allowed anger to be felt, her sleep deepened, her dreams became calmer, her days felt less reactive. She did not become harsher, she became clearer. Good people often suffer because they confuse kindness with silence, but true kindness includes honesty with oneself. Another powerful practice before sleep is forgiveness. Not forced forgiveness, but forgiveness born from understanding. Forgiveness here does not mean excusing harm. It means releasing the body from carrying the charge. You may forgive others, you may forgive yourself, or you may simply allow the feeling to rest without story. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal. You do not drop it by blaming yourself. You drop it by opening your hand. Before sleep, try this reflection. I allow myself to feel what I feel. I do not need to punish myself for it. I do not need to act on it. I can let it pass. Let the breath slow. Let the muscles soften. Let the body know it does not have to guard the night. Anger does not need to be fixed. It needs to be witnessed. As you rest, remember this. You are allowed to have limits. You are allowed to feel resistance. You are allowed to protect your energy. The Buddha did not teach the absence of emotion. He taught freedom from being ruled by emotion. This is the sixth teaching. Exhaustion eases when anger is allowed to move, and truth is met with compassion instead of suppression. The seventh teaching. How losing yourself for others disrupts your sleep. Have you ever gone to bed feeling empty, as if the day took more from you than it gave? You helped, you listened, you showed up when others needed you. Yet when the night comes, your body feels hollow, your mind restless, your heart strangely lonely. You wonder why doing good leaves you so tired. This is a quiet suffering many good people know well. The Buddha taught that generosity without wisdom leads to exhaustion. He did not teach self-sacrifice as a path to peace. He taught balance. When care flows only outward and never returns inward, the body keeps score. Good people often learn early that love means availability, that worth comes from usefulness, that being needed is the same as being valued, so they give reflexively. They say yes before checking their capacity. They absorb others' pain without noticing their own depletion. At night, this imbalance reveals itself. Sleep feels shallow. Dreams are crowded with faces and unfinished conversations. The nervous system stays alert, as if someone might need you at any moment. The Buddha taught the middle way. Not indulgence, not denial, balance. Consider a man named Leo. He was the one everyone relied on. Friends called him first. Family leaned on him. At work, He took on extra responsibility without complaint. He believed being dependable was his role in life. At night, Leo could not fully rest. His mind replayed requests he had agreed to. His body felt tight, as if bracing for the next demand. Even on quiet evenings, he felt on call. Leo believed his exhaustion meant he needed more discipline or better time management. He never considered that his suffering might be coming from a lack of inward care. During a teaching, he heard something unexpected. The Buddha said you cannot care for others well if you abandon yourself. This was not selfishness, it was clarity. Leo began to notice how often he ignored signals from his body. A tight chest when he said yes reluctantly. A sinking feeling when he agreed to something that drained him. He had trained himself to override these signals in the name of kindness. The Buddha taught that true generosity is voluntary. When giving comes from obligation or fear of disappointing others, it becomes a source of suffering. Another name for this suffering is loss of self-contact. At night, when roles drop away, the self that was ignored all day begins to speak. It speaks through restlessness, through sadness, through fatigue that sleep alone cannot fix. The Buddha taught that awareness must include oneself, otherwise compassion becomes unbalanced. Leo practiced a simple inquiry each evening. He asked himself, where did I give today, without checking if I could. At first, guilt arose. He felt selfish, even asking the question. But over time, something softened. He realized how often he gave to avoid discomfort. Discomfort of saying no. Discomfort of being misunderstood. Discomfort of not being needed. The Buddha taught that suffering often comes not from what we do, but from why we do it. Giving to be loved feels very different in the body than giving from fullness. Another layer of this teaching is boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are clarity. Good people often fear boundaries because they associate them with rejection. But the Buddha taught that wise boundaries protect both giver and receiver. Without boundaries, resentment grows. With resentment, sleep disappears. Leo noticed that his nighttime anxiety decreased when he began setting small limits. He did not change his nature. He simply began listening to his body before responding. When someone asked for help, he paused. He felt his breath. He noticed sensation. Tightness meant no. Openness meant yes. This pause was revolutionary. The Buddha taught that mindfulness before action prevents regret after. Another reason overgiving disrupts sleep is because the mind keeps track of unfinished energetic exchanges. When you give beyond capacity, something remains incomplete. The body waits for restoration that never comes. At night, the system seeks balance. To practice this teaching tonight, reflect gently. Bring to mind one interaction from today. Notice how your body feels as you remember it. Open, neutral, heavy. The body knows where energy was lost. Place a hand on that area. Breathe slowly. Say silently, I acknowledge this. Acknowledgement is the first step toward restoration. The Buddha taught that self-care is not indulgence. It is maintenance of the instrument through which compassion flows. Leo began creating a nightly ritual of return. Before sleep, he consciously brought attention back to himself. He felt his breath. He named his needs. He allowed himself to rest without earning it. At first, guilt appeared. He felt he should be doing more. But he stayed with the breath. He let the feeling pass. Over time, his sleep deepened. His dreams became simpler. His mornings lighter. Something else changed too. His giving became cleaner. When he helped, he did so freely. When he said no, he did so calmly. The Buddha taught that clarity is kindness. Another aspect of this teaching is identity. Many good people identify as the helper, the supporter, the strong one. This identity becomes a cage. At night, when the identity loosens, fear arises. Who am I if I am not needed? The Buddha taught anatta again here. You are not your role. You are awareness experiencing roles. Rest comes when you allow yourself to exist without function. Before sleep, try this practice. Lie comfortably. With each exhale, release one role you carried today. Helper, problem solver, caretaker, fixer. Underneath, notice the simple presence that remains. This presence does not need to be useful. It only needs to be. Good people often heal when they allow themselves to receive their own care. Leo learned to offer himself the same patience he gave others, the same listening, the same forgiveness. His body responded with rest. As you prepare for sleep, remember this. You are allowed to stop giving when the day ends. You are allowed to turn inward. You are allowed to rest without justification. The Buddha did not teach endless giving. He taught wise giving. This is the seventh teaching. Sleep returns when care includes the one who gives, and balance replaces self-abandonment. The eighth teaching. How fear of being alone keeps the mind awake. Have you ever felt most uneasy at night, not because of what happened during the day, but because of the quiet itself? The room is still, no messages are coming in, no one needs anything from you, and instead of relief, a subtle fear appears, a feeling of emptiness, a sense of being unheld. This is one of the deepest and least spoken forms of suffering. Many good people are not afraid of noise. They are afraid of silence, not because silence is wrong, but because silence removes distraction. In that quiet space, old fears surface. Fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten, fear that without connection, there is nothing to anchor the self. The Buddha taught that clinging to others for identity creates suffering, not because relationships are wrong, but because they are impermanent. When the sense of self depends on constant connection, separation feels threatening, even for a single night. This fear often disguises itself as restlessness, as checking the phone one last time, as needing background noise to sleep, as falling asleep only when exhausted enough to lose awareness quickly. But underneath, there is a deeper question quietly asking, who am I when no one is here? The Buddha taught that loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of connection with oneself. Consider a woman named Elena. She was socially connected, caring, and rarely alone during the day. Friends texted her often. Family relied on her. She was surrounded by voices and activity. At night, Elena struggled. She left the television on to fall asleep. Silence felt heavy. When she woke in the night, anxiety rushed in. Thoughts appeared about aging alone, losing people, being left behind. She told herself she just needed distraction, but distraction never brought rest. During a period of study, Elena encountered a teaching that unsettled her. The Buddha taught that refuge must be internal. External refuge is unstable. Only inner refuge does not disappear. This was not a call to withdraw from others. It was an invitation to meet oneself. The Buddha taught that fear arises when we believe we cannot be with our own experience. When the mind believes solitude equals danger, the body stays alert. Elena began to notice how often she avoided being alone with herself, not just at night, but emotionally. She filled every gap, every pause, every moment of stillness. Her nervous system had learned that connection equaled safety and aloneness equaled threat. This pattern often forms early, when emotional needs are inconsistently met, when comfort depends on others' availability, when love feels conditional. The Buddha taught that these patterns are conditioned. They are learned, and what is learned can be gently unlearned. The eighth teaching is about cultivating inner companionship, not isolation, companionship. The Buddha taught that awareness itself can be a refuge. When you learn to be present with experience without abandoning it, fear loses its grip. Elena began a practice that felt strange at first. Before sleep, she intentionally turned off external noise. She sat quietly for a few minutes with her breath. Fear appeared almost immediately, tightness in the chest, a sinking sensation in the belly, thoughts about being alone. Instead of distracting herself, she stayed. She placed a hand on her body and breathed slowly. She silently said, "I am here with you." This was not positive thinking, it was presence. The Buddha taught that fear dissolves when it is met with awareness and kindness. Night after night, Elena practiced sitting with herself. Some nights were harder than others. Sometimes tears came, sometimes sadness, sometimes longing. She did not analyze. She did not judge. She simply stayed. Slowly, something shifted. The quiet no longer felt hostile. It felt spacious. She realized that much of her fear was not about being alone now. It was about old loneliness resurfacing. The Buddha taught that the past lives in the present through sensation. When these sensations are met, they complete themselves. Another layer of this teaching is the fear of impermanence. At night, when the mind slows, awareness of change becomes more apparent. The body ages, relationships change, life moves. For those who rely on others for stability, this awareness can be frightening. The Buddha taught that true stability comes from understanding change, not resisting it. He taught equanimity, the ability to remain balanced amidst change. Equanimity is not indifference, it is intimacy with reality. Elena practiced equanimity by reminding herself gently everything changes, and I can stay present with that. She did not force acceptance. She allowed understanding to grow slowly. The fear of being alone softened as she realized she was never actually abandoned. Awareness remained, breath remained, presence remained. This is a profound shift. Good people often fear solitude because they associate it with worthlessness. If no one needs me, do I matter? The Buddha taught that worth is not earned through usefulness. Being itself is enough. To practice this teaching tonight, begin with a simple intention. I will keep myself company. Lie comfortably. Turn attention inward. Feel the body. Notice the breath. If fear arises, do not push it away. Place a hand on the area where fear lives. Breathe slowly. Say silently, you are not alone right now. This message must reach the nervous system. Another powerful practice is loving kindness toward oneself. Metta is often taught toward others, but it begins within. Before sleep, offer yourself these wishes silently. May I be safe. May I be at ease. May I feel supported from within. Let the words sink into the body, not the intellect. Elena noticed that when she practiced this, her body relaxed, her breath deepened, sleep came more naturally. She did not stop loving others, but she stopped using others to avoid herself. This allowed her relationships to become healthier, less anxious, less dependent. The Buddha taught that clinging to others creates fear of loss. Standing in oneself allows love to flow freely. Another aspect of this teaching is learning to sit with emptiness. Emptiness here does not mean nothingness. It means openness without grasping. The Buddha taught that emptiness is the nature of experience. When we stop filling it compulsively, it becomes peaceful. At night, emptiness can feel frightening because there is nothing to distract from it. But when emptiness is met with awareness, it becomes rest. Elena practiced resting in emptiness by noticing the space around sensations, the space between breaths, the space between thoughts. She discovered that emptiness was not cold, it was gentle. Good people often carry the belief that they must always be connected to feel alive. The Buddha taught that aliveness is inherent. You do not disappear when no one is watching. As you prepare for sleep, remember this. You are accompanied by awareness itself. You are not alone in the quiet. You are held by presence. You do not need to fill the night with noise. You can let it hold you. Let the body rest into the bed. Let the breath become natural. Let awareness remain soft and open. If fear returns, greet it like a child waking in the dark, not with analysis, with gentleness. Stay. The Buddha did not promise that life would remove fear. He taught how to meet fear without being ruled by it. This is the 8th teaching. When inner companionship replaces fear of solitude, the night becomes a place of rest rather than threat. In this quiet, healing continues. Even while you sleep, the 9th teaching. How old grief lives in the body and visits you at night. Have you ever gone to bed feeling fine, only to wake in the middle of the night with a heaviness you cannot explain? No clear thought caused it. No recent event triggered it. Yet your chest feels full, your throat tight, your eyes close to tears. You wonder where this sadness came from. Often, it did not come from today. The Buddha taught that not all suffering belongs to the present moment. Some pain remains stored in the body, long after the mind believes it has moved on. This is especially true for grief that was never given space to be felt. Good people are especially vulnerable to this form of suffering. When loss happens, they stay strong. They take care of others. They manage practical tasks. They tell themselves there is no time to fall apart, so grief is postponed. But grief does not disappear when postponed. It waits. The Buddha taught dukkha again here, not as obvious pain, but as the subtle ache of what was never fully met. When grief is suppressed, it often returns at night, when defenses are low and the body finally feels safe enough to speak. Consider a man named Thomas. Years earlier, he had lost his father. The loss was sudden. There were responsibilities to handle, people to support, decisions to make. Thomas did what was needed. He stayed composed. He believed he had processed the loss because he did not cry often and continued with life. Years later, Thomas struggled with sleep. He woke early with a sense of sorrow that had no story. He felt emotionally heavy for no reason. He told himself he should be past this. During a meditation retreat, he was asked to sit quietly and observe sensations. Without warning, grief rose up. His chest tightened, tears came. Images of his father surfaced, not as memories, but as feelings. Thomas realized he had never actually allowed himself to grieve. He had functioned through loss, but he had not felt it. The Buddha taught that grief is not a problem to solve. It is a process to be allowed. When grief is blocked, it becomes stored energy. The body holds it. The nervous system remains guarded. Sleep becomes light because something unfinished waits to be acknowledged. Good people often suppress grief because they believe it will overwhelm them. They fear that if they open the door, they will never recover. But the Buddha taught that what we allow to move through awareness completes itself. What we resist remains. Another reason grief causes nighttime suffering is because grief often includes love that had nowhere to go. When grief is unexpressed, love remains trapped. The Buddha taught that grief is the shadow of attachment. When there is love, there will be grief. This is not a failure. It is a sign of connection. Thomas learned that his grief was not weakness. It was love still alive. Before sleep, he began a new practice. He invited grief gently, not to drown in it, but to acknowledge it. He placed a hand on his chest and breathed slowly. He allowed tears if they came. He did not force them if they did not. He said silently, "You mattered to me." This simple acknowledgement changed everything. The Buddha taught mindfulness of feeling, not analyzing emotion, but sensing it directly in the body. This is how old grief is released. You may carry grief from many sources: loss of people, loss of relationships, loss of opportunities, loss of parts of yourself. Not all grief is dramatic. Some grief is quiet and cumulative. Good people often minimize their grief because others had it worse, because life went on, because they survived. But survival does not mean completion. The body remembers what the mind dismisses. To practice this teaching tonight, begin by allowing the possibility that grief may be present. You do not need to label it as grief. You only need to notice heaviness, ache, or tenderness. Lie comfortably. Bring attention to the chest and belly. Breathe gently, longer exhales. If emotion arises, stay with sensation rather than story. You do not need to revisit events. Let the body feel. Say silently, "It is okay to feel this now." This message tells the nervous system it no longer has to guard the grief alone. Thomas noticed that when he allowed grief in small doses, his sleep improved. He did not become consumed. He became lighter. The body relaxed because it no longer needed to hold everything in. Another layer of this teaching is unfinished goodbyes. Words never said, feelings never expressed, appreciation never spoken. The Buddha taught that intention matters, even when action is no longer possible. You can still complete emotional cycles inwardly. Before sleep, you may bring to mind someone or something you lost, not to suffer, but to acknowledge. You may say silently, "Thank you. I miss you. I carry you with me." Then return to the breath. This practice is not indulgence, it is completion. The Buddha taught that clinging to grief prolongs suffering, but avoiding grief also prolongs suffering. The middle way is allowing grief to arise and pass. Thomas learned to trust this rhythm. Some nights were quiet, some nights tears came. Both were allowed. His body slowly learned that grief did not mean danger. It meant honesty. Good people often believe they must always be strong, but the Buddha taught that strength includes softness. Another reason grief disrupts sleep is because grief often carries fear of forgetting. If I stop feeling this pain, will I lose them completely? The Buddha taught that memory does not require suffering. Love does not require pain to stay alive. Thomas realized he could remember his father with warmth instead of ache. The grief softened when he stopped using pain as proof of love. To practice this aspect, after allowing grief to be felt, gently introduce a moment of gratitude, one memory that brings warmth, one quality you carry forward. Let the body feel both sadness and appreciation. This balance helps grief integrate. As you rest tonight, remember this. You are not late in grieving. There is no timeline. The body releases when it feels safe. You do not need to open everything at once. Small acknowledgements are enough. The Buddha taught that suffering ends when clinging ends, but clinging ends through understanding, not force. Grief softens when it is welcomed without judgment. Let the body rest. Let the breath slow. Let whatever arises be allowed. This is the 9th teaching. Nighttime sorrow eases when old grief is given permission to be felt and love is allowed to move freely again. In this gentle allowing, healing continues. Even while you sleep, the 10th teaching, how trust allows the mind to release and the body to heal. Have you ever reached the end of the night, feeling as if sleep finally arrived only after you surrendered? Not because you solved anything, but because you became too tired to keep holding on. In those moments, there is often a brief softness, a sense of letting go, and then rest comes. This teaching begins there. The Buddha taught that suffering continues not only because of pain, but because of control. The mind tries to manage life even when the body is asking to rest. It plans, reviews, protects, anticipates. At night, when the world is quiet, control becomes louder because there is nothing left to manage except uncertainty. Good people often struggle most with this. They believe vigilance is responsibility. They believe rest must be earned. They believe letting go means something will be lost. But the Buddha taught that healing requires trust. Not blind trust. Wise trust. Trust that the body knows how to heal. Trust that the mind can rest without collapsing. Trust that life can continue unfolding even when you are not watching. Consider a man named Aaron. He lived with a constant sense of responsibility. During the day, he managed tasks and people. At night, he managed thoughts. He believed that if he stayed alert, nothing bad would happen. Sleep felt dangerous to him. Letting awareness fade felt like giving up control. Aaron woke often during the night. His body never fully relaxed. Even in dreams, he was solving problems. During a teaching, he heard a phrase that unsettled him. The Buddha said, "Peace is found when effort is relinquished at the right time." This did not mean giving up on life. It meant understanding when effort becomes resistance. Aaron began to notice that his nighttime suffering was not caused by the day. It was caused by his inability to release control when the day was over. The Buddha taught that right effort includes knowing when to stop. This teaching is subtle. Many people believe effort is always virtuous. But the Buddha taught the middle way. Too much effort creates tension. Too little creates stagnation. Wisdom knows when to apply and when to release. At night, release is the medicine. The body heals during rest. The nervous system recalibrates. The mind integrates experience. None of this can happen when control is tight. Aaron practiced a simple ritual before sleep. He named the end of the day. He said silently, "The work of today is complete." Then he placed a hand on his body and breathed slowly. With each exhale, he imagined setting something down. Plans, worries, responsibilities. At first, fear arose. What if I forget something? What if something goes wrong? He stayed with the breath. The Buddha taught that fear often appears when control loosens. This does not mean control is needed. It means the nervous system is learning something new. Trust is learned through repetition. Another layer of this teaching, is surrender. Surrender does not mean defeat. It means allowing what is already happening. The Buddha taught that resistance multiplies suffering. Acceptance reduces it. Aaron noticed that when he stopped fighting wakefulness, sleep came sooner. When he stopped demanding rest, rest arrived. This paradox is central to the teaching. Good people often try to force peace. They meditate to stop thinking. They lie still to make sleep happen. But the body does not respond to commands. It responds to safety. Safety comes from trust. To practice this teaching tonight, begin by acknowledging that you do not need to fix the night. You only need to allow it. Lie comfortably. Feel the support beneath you. Notice the breath as it is. Say silently, I allow this moment to be exactly as it is. If thoughts arise, let them pass without engagement. You do not need to follow or stop them. If the body feels restless, allow restlessness. Fighting restlessness creates more of it. The Buddha taught that acceptance is not approval. It is clarity. Aaron also practiced letting the night work on him. He stopped seeing sleep as something he had to achieve. He saw it as something that happens when conditions are right. He focused on creating conditions: darkness, warmth, stillness, kindness toward himself. This shifted everything. Another reason trust is difficult at night is because night reminds us of impermanence. Awareness fades. Control loosens. Life continues without supervision. For those who fear loss, this can be frightening. The Buddha taught that impermanence is not a threat. It is a truth that allows release. Nothing needs to be held forever. Aaron reflected on this before sleep. He reminded himself that he had slept many nights before, and life continued. The body knew how to wake. The heart knew how to beat. Trust grew slowly. The Buddha taught that confidence arises from experience, not belief. Each night, Aaron allowed himself to let go a little more. Some nights were easier, some were not. He did not judge the process. Judgment tightens control again. Good people often judge themselves for not resting well. This adds another layer of effort. The Buddha taught gentleness. Gentleness is effort without strain. To cultivate gentleness, place attention on the exhale. Let it lengthen naturally. The exhale signals release. Imagine the body melting into the surface beneath it. You are being held. You do not need to hold yourself. Another powerful aspect of this teaching is faith in the present moment. The Buddha taught that the present moment is the only place peace can be found. At night, the present moment is simple: breath, sensation, stillness. When the mind wanders, return gently. Aaron learned that trust was not something he decided once. It was something he practiced every night. As trust grew, his sleep deepened. But more importantly, his days changed. He became less controlling, more flexible, more at ease. He realized that his nighttime struggle had been teaching him about life. The Buddha taught that practice is not separate from daily living. Trust at night becomes trust during the day. Before sleep tonight, try this final reflection. I have done enough for today. It is safe to rest now. Say it slowly. Let the words reach the body. If resistance arises, notice it kindly. Resistance is not failure. It is habit. Breathe. You do not need to monitor the night. You can let it carry you. The Buddha taught that awakening does not require constant effort. It requires wise effort followed by release. This is the 10th teaching. Healing deepens when trust replaces control. Rest comes when the mind steps back and allows the body to do what it has always known how to do. As you drift towards sleep, remember this: you are not falling away from life. You are entering the place where life repairs itself. Let go. The night knows how to hold you. The 11th teaching. How clear seeing brings quiet peace to the night. Have you ever noticed how suffering softens the moment you finally understand what is happening inside you? Not because anything changed on the outside, but because confusion lifted. The body relaxes when the mind stops guessing. The heart rests when it no longer fights what is. This teaching is about that moment. The Buddha taught that much of suffering is born from misunderstanding. Not misunderstanding others, but misunderstanding experience itself. We misread sensations as danger. We misread emotions as problems. We misread thoughts as commands. And because of this, the mind stays vigilant long after the day ends. Clear seeing ends this struggle. The Buddha called this panna, wisdom. Not intellectual knowledge, but direct understanding of how experience works. When wisdom is present, the mind stops arguing with reality. The body receives the signal that it is safe to rest. Good people often suffer at night because they are deeply reflective. They replay experiences trying to make sense of them. They search for meaning. They look for errors. But without clear seeing, reflection becomes rumination. Clear seeing is different. It does not analyze endlessly. It recognizes patterns and lets them go. Consider a woman named Claire. She had practiced many techniques to help her sleep. Breathing, relaxation, meditation. Some nights they worked. Some nights they did not. What troubled her most was not sleeplessness itself, but the confusion around it. Why does this keep happening? What am I missing? What is wrong with me? Her mind stayed active because it was trying to understand. During a period of study, she encountered a simple but profound teaching. The Buddha taught that everything experienced can be seen as sensation, feeling, thought, and awareness. Nothing more, nothing less. This changed how Claire related to her nights. Instead of saying, "I cannot sleep," she began noticing what was actually present. Sensation in the body, feeling tone, thoughts passing through, awareness noticing all of it. She realized that much of her suffering came from the story about being awake, not from wakefulness itself. The Buddha taught that suffering is created when we add story to experience. Clear seeing removes the story and leaves only what is. At night, this is powerful. When you lie awake, there is sensation, perhaps tightness, perhaps restlessness. There is feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. There are thoughts, plans, worries, memories, and there is awareness that knows all of this. Clear seeing recognizes that awareness itself is not disturbed. Claire practiced this before sleep. When wakefulness appeared, she did not resist it. She observed. This is sensation. This is unpleasant feeling. This is thought. This is awareness. Something softened immediately. The Buddha taught that what you observe without clinging loses its power to disturb. Clear seeing is not detachment. It is intimacy without confusion. Another layer of this teaching is recognizing impermanence directly, not as an idea, but as lived experience. Sensations change, thoughts shift, emotions rise and fall. When the mind truly sees this, it stops holding tightly. Claire noticed that even her restlessness came in waves. It peaked, it softened, it passed. Sleep often followed without effort. The Buddha taught that wisdom does not force outcomes. It creates the conditions for release. Good people often try to do something with their experience. Fix it, improve it, understand it better. Clear seeing asks something else. Can you simply see what is happening without needing it to be different? This question changes everything. Another reason clear seeing brings peace is because it dissolves self-blame. When you see experience as conditions arising and passing, you stop taking it personally. Claire stopped asking, "Why am I like this?" and started seeing this is how the nervous system behaves under certain conditions. This removed shame. The Buddha taught that shame is born from misunderstanding. Understanding dissolves it. To practice this teaching tonight, begin by adopting the position of a gentle observer. Lie comfortably. Let the body settle. Bring attention to what is present now. Name it silently, in simple terms. Sensation, feeling, thought. Do not describe the content, only the category. This creates space. If the mind wanders into story, gently return to observing categories. This practice does not suppress thinking. It organizes awareness. Clear seeing also reveals something profound. Awareness is always present, even when experience is uncomfortable. Awareness itself does not need rest. It does not need fixing. The Buddha taught that suffering belongs to conditions, not to awareness. When Claire recognized this, fear softened. She was no longer afraid of being awake because awareness felt stable. She stopped struggling against the night. Another important aspect of this teaching is letting experience complete itself. When you see clearly, you stop interrupting natural processes with resistance. Sleep is a natural process. So is wakefulness. The Buddha taught that the body knows how to regulate itself when the mind stops interfering. Claire noticed that when she simply observed wakefulness, sleep often arrived quietly. Not always, but often enough to trust the process. Clear seeing does not guarantee outcomes. It removes suffering around outcomes. Good people often mistake peace for constant comfort. The Buddha taught that peace is non-resistance to what is. This is why clear seeing is liberating. Another layer of this teaching is compassion. When you see clearly, compassion arises naturally. You stop judging yourself. You see the conditions that led to this moment. Claire became kinder to herself. She stopped seeing sleeplessness as failure. Her body responded with softness. Before sleep, try this reflection. Nothing is wrong with this moment. There is only experience unfolding. Say it gently. If resistance arises, see that too. Resistance is another experience. Clear seeing includes everything. The Buddha taught that wisdom is inclusive, not selective. As you practice this, notice how the body responds. Often, tension releases when the mind stops labeling experience as a problem. The breath deepens, muscles soften, sleep may follow. Even if sleep does not come immediately, suffering lessens. This is success. Clear seeing also helps integrate all the previous teachings. Emotions can be felt without resistance. Attachment loosens, guilt softens, anger moves, grief releases, fear finds companionship, trust grows. All of this happens naturally when understanding replaces confusion. Claire eventually noticed that her nights became teachers, not enemies. They showed her where she still resisted, where she still misunderstood. She stopped trying to conquer the night and began listening to it. The Buddha taught that wisdom grows through observation, not force. As you prepare to rest, Remember this. You do not need to achieve sleep. You only need to see clearly what is happening now. Let the body lie where it is. Let the breath move as it does. Let awareness remain open. If thoughts come, see them as thoughts. If sensations arise, see them as sensations. Nothing needs to be pushed away. Clear seeing is already peace in action. This is the 11th teaching. When understanding replaces struggle, the night loses its power to disturb and becomes a place of quiet learning and rest. In this gentle clarity, healing continues. Even if sleep arrives slowly, even if wakefulness remains, peace is already present in the seeing itself. The 12th teaching. How resting in your own light ends the cycle of suffering. Have you ever had a moment late at night when everything finally becomes quiet? Not because problems disappeared, but because something inside you stopped fighting. The body is still, the breath is slow, and for a brief moment, you feel okay without needing a reason. This teaching lives there. After all the effort, all the understanding, all the gentle practices, the Buddha offered something surprisingly simple. He taught that freedom is not something you build. It is something you recognize when grasping ends. This is the teaching of wise reflection and inner refuge. The Buddha taught that external solutions can support you, but they cannot replace inner clarity. Techniques help. Understanding helps. Compassion helps. But at some point, the mind must learn to rest in its own awareness without leaning. Good people often suffer because they are always reaching outward, for answers, for reassurance, for permission to rest. Even spiritual practice can become another form of striving if it is used to fix oneself. The Buddha did not teach practice as self-improvement. He taught it as self-understanding. Consider a woman named Maya. She had walked a long inner path. She read teachings, practiced meditation, reflected deeply, yet at night, a subtle restlessness remained. Not sharp suffering, but a sense that something was still unresolved. She wondered what more she needed to do. During a quiet moment of reflection, she encountered a teaching that changed her relationship with effort. The Buddha said, "Be a refuge unto yourself." This did not mean isolation. It meant no longer depending on anything outside to validate your peace. Maya realized that even her healing had become something she was chasing. She was always almost at peace, but not quite allowing herself to arrive. The 12th teaching is about stopping the search. The Buddha taught that when the mind stops searching, what remains is clarity. When clarity is present, the body rests naturally. This does not mean you will never feel pain again. It means pain no longer defines you. Maya began to practice wise reflection each night, not analyzing the day, not correcting herself, but gently asking one question: what is already okay right now? At first, the mind resisted. It pointed to fatigue, to uncertainty, to unfinished things. She stayed with the question. Eventually, something softened. Even with fatigue present, something was okay. Even with uncertainty, something was steady. The Buddha taught that awareness itself is not wounded by experience. Experience comes and goes. Awareness remains. This realization is subtle but powerful. Good people often identify completely with their experiences. If there is pain, they believe they are broken. If there is restlessness, they believe they are failing. If there is sadness, they believe something is wrong. The Buddha taught that you are not the content of experience, you are the knowing of it. This is not philosophy, it is direct seeing. When Maya rested in awareness rather than experience, her nights changed. Not because symptoms vanished, but because she stopped fighting them. The body responded immediately. Tension eased, breath deepened, sleep came more easily. Not every night, but often enough to trust. The Buddha taught that wise reflection is not thinking more, it is thinking less and seeing more. Another layer of this teaching is self-trust. Trusting that you can meet whatever arises without collapsing. Many people lie awake at night because they fear the next feeling, another wave of sadness, another thought, another memory. They brace against what might come. Wise reflection asks something else. Can I stay present with whatever arises? This question changes the relationship to fear. Maya noticed that when she stopped fearing her own experience, the night felt less threatening. Even wakefulness felt manageable. The Buddha taught that fear is born from resistance. When resistance drops, fear loses fuel. Another important aspect of this teaching is relinquishing spiritual ambition. The desire to be healed, the desire to be calm, the desire to be enlightened. Desire itself creates tension. The Buddha taught that peace appears when desire relaxes. Maya practiced letting even spiritual goals rest at night. She stopped trying to have a good night. She allowed whatever night came. This acceptance did not make things worse. It made them easier. Good people often believe acceptance means settling, but the Buddha taught that acceptance is the ground from which true change arises. Wise reflection also means seeing how far you have already come. Many people focus only on what remains painful. They forget what has already softened. Before sleep, Maya reflected gently. What feels lighter than it once did? What no longer hurts as much? What I can now hold with kindness? This reflection nourished trust. The Buddha taught that joy arises naturally when we recognize freedom that is already present. Joy here is not excitement, it is quiet ease. Another part of this teaching is releasing comparison, comparing your healing to others. Comparing tonight to last night, comparing yourself to an imagined ideal. Comparison keeps the mind active. The Buddha taught contentment. Contentment does not mean giving up. It means resting with enough. Maya practiced contentment by allowing the night to be what it was. She stopped measuring. Her body responded with softness. To practice this teaching tonight, begin by lying comfortably. Let the body settle. Bring attention to awareness itself. Not what you are aware of, but the fact of being aware. Notice that awareness is already here without effort. Thoughts may come, sensations may shift, emotions may arise. Awareness remains unchanged. Rest there. If the mind wanders, gently return to the sense of being aware. This is not concentration, it is recognition. Say silently, I am here. Nothing else is required. The Buddha taught that this recognition is enough. Another helpful reflection before sleep is this. Even if nothing changes tonight, I am still whole. Let the words land in the body. Maya noticed that when she stopped demanding resolution, resolution often appeared on its own. Not as a dramatic moment, but as ease. The 12th teaching is the integration of all the others. Emotions can arise without resistance. Attachment can loosen. Guilt can soften. Anger can move. Grief can be felt. Fear can be held. Trust can grow. Understanding can settle. And beneath all of it, awareness remains steady. The Buddha taught that liberation is not the absence of experience, but freedom within experience. As you prepare to rest, remember this: you are not behind. You are not failing. You are not broken. You are already on the ground of awareness. You do not need to reach the end of the path tonight. You are already standing in the place the path points to. Let the body rest. Let the breath move naturally. Let awareness hold whatever comes. If sleep arrives, welcome it. If it does not, rest in being. This is the 12th teaching. When you stop searching for peace and recognize the light already present within you, suffering loses its authority, and the night becomes a place of quiet belonging. Here, even without effort, healing continues. The 13th teaching: how choosing presence ends the search and returns you to life. Have you ever noticed that after all the understanding, all the practices, all the gentle insights, there is still one final movement the mind makes? It asks, what now? How do I keep this? How do I make sure the peace stays? How do I not fall back into suffering? This question itself is the last doorway. The Buddha taught that suffering does not end because we perfect ourselves. It ends when we stop turning life into a problem that needs solving. The final teaching is not another method. It is a shift in relationship, a turning toward presence. Presence is not something you create. It is what remains when seeking pauses. Good people often struggle here because they are sincere. They want to do the path correctly. They want to live in a way that honors what they have learned. But sincerity can quietly become tension when it is mixed with fear of losing progress. The Buddha taught that the path is walked by living, not by monitoring. This 13th teaching is about returning fully to life as it is, moment by moment, without standing outside yourself to evaluate how you are doing. Consider a man named Jonah. He had worked deeply with his inner world. He understood his patterns. He practiced mindfulness. He met his emotions with kindness. Much of his suffering had softened, yet a subtle restlessness remained. He noticed that even in calm moments, part of his mind stayed alert, checking, am I present enough? Am I peaceful enough? Am I doing this right? The search had simply changed shape. During a quiet teaching, he heard something simple and disarming. The Buddha taught that when you are present, there is no observer left to judge presence. This struck Jonah deeply. He realized that he was still standing one step away from life, watching himself live instead of living. Presence is immediate. It does not comment on itself. The Buddha taught that liberation is not an experience you hold. It is the absence of grasping at experience. Jonah began practicing something radical in its simplicity. He stopped trying to apply teachings during the day. He did not abandon them. He trusted they were already shaping him. Instead, he practiced one thing: being where he was. When he walked, he walked. When he ate, he ate. When he felt tired, he rested. When emotion arose, he felt it without labeling it as progress or setback. At night, this made a profound difference. He no longer lay in bed reviewing the day as spiritual data. He lay down and felt the body, breath, weight, warmth. Sleep came more naturally because nothing was being managed. The Buddha taught that effort has its place, and then it must be released. Just as a boat is used to cross a river, then left behind, many people carry the boat on their backs long after crossing. This final teaching is about setting the boat down. Presence ends the search because presence is not going anywhere. It is always now. Another layer of this teaching is trust in integration. When understanding is real, it does not need constant attention. It becomes part of how you move, speak, and respond. Good people often fear that if they stop paying attention, they will lose everything. But the Buddha taught that what is truly understood cannot be lost. Jonah noticed that when he stopped monitoring himself, he became more genuine, more responsive, less tense. He laughed more, rested more easily, apologized more simply, said no without explanation. His life felt closer. This is the quiet fruit of practice. At night, presence means allowing the night to be the night. Not a test, not a lesson, not a place to achieve peace, just night. The Buddha taught that life is not asking you to be enlightened at bedtime. It is asking you to be human. To practice this teaching, begin by simplifying. When you lie down, let go of techniques, let go of analysis, let go of even the idea of healing. Feel the body as a whole, not scanning, not fixing, just sensing. Notice that awareness is already here without effort. If thoughts come, let them come. If emotions arise, let them arise. You do not need to do anything with them. Presence is allowing. Another important aspect of this teaching is returning to ordinary joy. Many people on inner paths unconsciously reject simple pleasure. They become serious, focused, heavy. The Buddha taught joy as a factor of awakening, not excitement, but aliveness. Jonah allowed himself to enjoy small things again. Morning light, warm tea, a quiet smile from a stranger. These moments grounded him in life rather than abstraction. At night, joy expresses itself as ease. The body settles when it feels allowed to be alive, not corrected. Another reason presence ends suffering is because presence dissolves time. Much nighttime suffering is about the past or the future, regret, anticipation, fear. Presence lives only now. When Jonah rested in presence, the mind stopped traveling. There was nowhere to go. The Buddha taught that the present moment is free from story. This does not mean memories or plans disappear. It means they are seen as passing mental events, not destinations. Presence also softens the identity of the one who suffers. Instead of, "I am anxious," there is anxiety arising. Instead of "I cannot sleep," there is wakefulness present. This shift has already been introduced earlier, but here it becomes natural rather than practiced. Jonah no longer tried to reframe. Seeing happened on its own. The Buddha taught that wisdom matures into simplicity. Good people often believe depth must feel complex, but true depth feels obvious, even ordinary. Another key part of this final teaching is allowing life to move you. Not everything needs to be chosen consciously. Some things can be trusted to unfold. Jonah stopped trying to manage his growth. He let experience teach him. This trust made nights gentler. If he slept, he slept. If he did not, he rested. If emotion visited, it was welcomed. Nothing was wasted. The Buddha taught that nothing in experience is outside the path. Presence also reconnects you with the body as home, not something to manage or improve, but something to inhabit. At night, this is essential. Sleep comes when the mind returns to the body and stops hovering above it. To embody this teaching, before sleep, try this simple orientation. Feel your whole body at once, not part by part, just the sense of being here. Let the breath move without instruction. If attention drifts, gently come back to the feeling of existing. No words are needed. Presence is not silent because it avoids sound. It is silent because it does not argue. Another subtle layer of this teaching is letting go of the identity of the wounded one. Even healing identities can become limiting. Jonah realized that he no longer needed to define himself by what he had suffered. His pain had taught him, but it did not need to keep narrating his life. The Buddha taught that freedom includes freedom from self-definition. This does not erase your story. It loosens its grip. At night, this loosening feels like relief. You are not required to be anyone in particular to rest, just here. As this chapter closes the body of teachings, it is important to say this. Nothing you have read is meant to be remembered perfectly. Nothing needs to be applied all at once. The teachings are not a checklist. They are mirrors. What matters now is not remembering them, but living. Presence will naturally draw from what you have understood when it is needed. Jonah stopped asking which teaching applied. He trusted that clarity would arise on its own. It did. As you reach the end of this chapter, rest in this understanding. There is nothing more you need to add to yourself. You have already learned how to feel, how to let go, how to be kind, how to see clearly, how to trust. Now, you are invited to live. At night, living means lying down and allowing life to carry you. If sleep comes, let it come. If it does not, remain present with what is here. This is enough. The Buddha taught that the end of suffering is not a dramatic event. It is the quiet absence of struggle. This is the 13th teaching and the closing of the body of this work. Choosing presence does not remove life's waves. It teaches you how to float without fear. From here, the path is no longer something you walk. It is the ground beneath your feet. And in this ground, even the night becomes a place of belonging, closing. As you come to the end of these teachings, notice what is different inside you, not dramatically, not perfectly, but quietly. Perhaps there is a little more space where there was once tension, a little more kindness where there was once judgment, a small but meaningful shift in how you relate to the night, to your mind, to yourself. The Buddha never promised a life without pain. He offered something deeper, the possibility of meeting pain without becoming lost in it, of resting even when life is uncertain, of choosing presence instead of struggle, again and again. You are not asked to remember every teaching. You are not required to practice perfectly. What matters is that you have learned how to listen to your body, to your emotions, to the quiet wisdom already living within you. Tonight, and on the nights to come, you may still feel tired. Thoughts may still visit. Emotions may still rise. Let them. You no longer need to fight them to find peace. Peace grows when you stop chasing it. As you lie down, allow yourself to rest exactly as you are. Not fixed, not finished, just human, breathing, aware, enough. And if nothing else stays with you, let this remain. You are allowed to rest, even now, even here.